the Board of Water Commission meeting at 8 AM on March 18th, 2025.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Okay, meeting is open. Morning, everybody. So we have a rather lengthy agenda, so we'll probably juggle this around a little bit to accommodate who's here. Brendan, are you here specifically for DOT or what project?
That also, but I guess this one.
Okay. This, okay, so, is everyone okay if we juggle the agenda around a little bit? To get Brendan back on the road?
fine with me.
Okay, Steve, you can hear us, right?
I can hear you.
So the old Salt House Marina and the old Salt House Water Service was an ongoing issue. As of late last week, the owner of the old Salt House informed me that it's no longer an issue, that they've come to a resolution. So I don't think we need to waste any time or much time discussing it today, unless there's anything new.
So everything's gonna stay as it is right now?
Yes,
Okay,
that's what I'm told.
all right.
No second fire line or second dedicated service.
That's different. This was just about them wanting the water line back.
Oh, Yeah.
They were just having a dispute between two private parties. They were trying to bring the water department into it. But yeah, it's my understanding that it's been resolved between the two private parties and there's nothing further for us to do as of this time. So, but we know that they have an active domestic line going into Salt House with a backflow. It serves the restaurant and they provide water to the marina, the docks. So, and the Salt House pays the bill and the name is in Cohasset Hospitality Partners. Right. So. Unless there's something I don't know, there's, from my perspective, there's nothing further for us to do.
Yeah, only that we hope there's a second fire line someday. Right?
To Atlantic.
Yes, currently there's one fire line going into the building and splitting two ways. And that fire line has frozen and split several times over the years. We've spoken to the contractors in the past when they first started working on the Atlantic thing. First of all, it should be replaced.
Yeah, isn't it
Because
like
it's failed several times now.
probably from the forties?
Shoot, what happened?
Where does it enter? Atlantic.
Oh, it just
In the Atlantic and then branches off. Through
Salt House is sprinkled.
From Atlantic, there's one building, one owner back in the day. It never got subdivided.
So at all those times you guys were talking about splitting the utilities because they sold the building, that didn't come up?
Never really.
Well, hasn't it, I mean, isn't John Dockery
We're
and the
good.
plumbing department and building
Yeah,
department,
yeah.
they're all aware?
John wanted at least a fire line, so the structure has fire protection.
Quick question for Brenda, Jonathan. Does the building and the service and fire line comply with the department's regulations and the fire department's regulations?
But now,
Because it's a joined building, technically it does, right? Because
Yeah.
every building is supposed to have its own, but it's technically one building.
But now it's
now it's
separate.
subdivided,
Now
Right.
it's subdivided.
but still
By-
one.
So, yes or no?
As far as I know, it meets the fire department's regulations. But as far as I'm concerned, that the water department's regulations are more stringent. And we want everybody to have their own separate lines. Because if that blows, who's gonna fix it?
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah, so it's, as long as everyone understands that someday it could be a problem.
And this is because it's more than one owner, because what we did with the condos is we had the two condo buildings there on Elm Street, and they have one fire line and one domestic between the two buildings.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that topic?
No, but, yeah, as you said, while we have Brendan, we should talk about, DOT and Short Street.
Okay, so DOT, I went before capital budget last night. They voted to approve our town meeting article. To borrow up to 1.2 million to pay for the cost of that. Water main replacement. So that will go before town meeting in, I think, May or June.
May.
May. And what I understand, they've started marking out the street. They're gonna start with utility poles. And we likely won't see any progress on our project until sometime next year. That's all I know.
We have a walkthrough meeting today at 10 a.m., right?
Here.
Yeah, with Brian and maybe DOT. Oh, okay, it's just Brian.
Okay,
Um,
now they're still going to Schofield Road. They're not stopping at Beechwood, correct?
They're going
'Cause-
just past Beechwood, but a little bit shy of. Schofield.
Yeah, because I remember it was supposed to be Schofield on and then it was changed to Beechwood and now it's.
PA Landers was here last week.
Yeah.
Just a quick intro, handing out their cards. And they're planning on having a group meeting with all the utilities at some given point before they start any.
Yeah, so there's a few things in my mind that are a little fuzzy. One, what's actually happening at the end of the line that we discussed at Avashon?
Yeah, how
So-
far are they going?
How far are they going? Are
Yep,
they going
that'll be-
beyond where it is now?
That's a question.
And then probably a question for Brian to work with DOT is who and how do we pay? Do we pay DOT? Do we pay PA Landers? And then from an internal finance standpoint, if we're gonna be progress paying, is the money borrowed all at once and then we pay it out? So we need to determine how that happens.
Well, I think DOT is gonna be billing me directly.
Okay.
When I mentioned I'm the one who pays the bills for the water department, they said I would be getting invoiced by the DOT. But,
Okay.
you know, we handed out Jonathan and my card for the contacts for here right now.
Okay. So the exact amount is also to be determined. Ryan said yesterday that it's essentially, we get billed as to what the, accumulated unit cost of everything they installed is. So I'd like a little bit more certainty on that, but I don't know how we get it at this point. So those are the pending questions that I think we need to answer next, like. Maybe the line question has to happen soon.
Yeah.
In terms of how we pay for it, I think we can figure that out. We've got a little bit more time. That's all I have on that project with you.
Pretty much that, until we get the answers.
Yeah.
It's private.
Anything.
All right, I was just wondering whether or not, instead of going forth with the entire debt service instantaneously, maybe we could be seeing how our budget is and maybe paying from our budget until we have to borrow.
Budget?
Yeah, see what we have in the budget. Yeah, depending on how they're billing us.
That's a good possibility.
Because we could go out and just get the bond initially, and goodness knows what the rates are going to be at the time.
And
It might be prudent to wait because the rates may be going down.
mm,
That's just a suggestion.
Well, I don't think we borrow anyways till we knew that we were getting invoiced. I mean, if it gets approved in May at town meeting, I don't think we would borrow until the following year anyways.
Well, yeah, the following year, but then if we're going to be billed in increments instead of whole blocks.
I don't have-
Because I know that the town will borrow times the entire amount and, we'll look what Jennifer did with those bans that were unnecessary.
I think the bills are
We
gonna,
have Linda now though, so
Yeah,
we're
I
in a
know.
better place.
I think the bills are gonna come in big chunks,
Well,
like 6 figures, big bills, so I don't think they're gonna necessarily fit in the budget, but.
well, let's see.
Yeah. we can see.
I just keep ourselves open to anything.
Yeah. Okay.
Fiscally prudent.
Good.
Only that we'll be discussing with Brian valves that need to be replaced at all the intersecting streets kind of before the real work starts.
It's supposed to be a 3-year project. So it's gonna be a big thing for a long time.
Yeah.
That's gonna mess up traffic,
Yeah, for a long time, yeah.
since that's gonna be a lot of traffic on Main Street. Which will mess up our Main Street.
Steve, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything. Actually, the only question is, I thought for municipals, those are 100% reimbursables from the state. Because
I don't understand. What are you saying?
well, forget, actually, no, forget, because we're doing it as they're working. So I missed, so they're paying 50, they're doing 50% of, we're paying 50% of the cost?
No, we're just paying materials.
Oh, okay.
No.
Installed as well.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
it.
And I think
Yeah.
we're paying for police and everything.
Oh,
No, I don't think
no,
so.
that's
No.
news to me. I thought it was just
I
materials.
thought it was just
Well,
material.
I thought it was
Okay.
materials at the beginning, but it sounded like it
It's
was more.
materials installed.
So labor.
But not police or any of that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, we don't pay for all of the other things that are in their general conditions essentially.
And paving and all that, we don't.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff we don't have to pay for. We just pay for the material installed. Material
Okay.
installed. All right, any further discussion on that topic?
Nope.
Okay,
Okay. So Brian wanted Pond Street and Cedar Street.
oh, yeah, so, and you said Short Street. So
Yeah.
Short Street's been approved. We have the retained earnings approved as well, so we're waiting for spring, right?
Yeah, which is pretty soon. And also, the only update we have is that we have all the quotes needed
They can open up the road as of April 15th.
April
Okay.
15th.
And so I think that's what IREA was planning on doing. Joey was starting maybe the second week in April. So, which is why I reached out to get 3 quotes on the pipe.
Yeah.
Which we did receive. The lowest bidder was Putnam Pipe. For 25,500.
Okay,
We'll probably have to store it here because they're gonna have to do above ground bypass. And then we'll just have to
So-
be snowed in.
did IREA send us a revised price? Is their price included?
Their price, I don't think included the pipe. We did it, let's see what street. Alright. Bypass, digging up. It does not include engineering, plumbing, electrical, landscape, hardscape, ledge removal, hauling, hazardous material. So I think it's gonna be just like we did for Cedar Street.
Yeah, we'll have to go
Supply
back
the
and,
pipe and we'll pay for the details.
okay, well then, you're gonna need to get an updated price from them, because we don't have. Well, we got approved, we do not have an additional 25,000 to pay for pipe. It's in IREA's price. We took IREA's price and put a 15% contingency on it,
Right,
so we don't have. Additional 25,000 to pay on top of IREA. Their price includes pipe. So that's gonna have to be reviewed with IREA.
all right, we'll reach out to Joey and talk to him.
But I know we discussed separate backing it out because you don't have to pay the tax on it. So let's
Correct.
just make sure we get a revised price from IREA. Okay. Anything else on that?
Nope.
What's happening in Pond Street?
So Pond Street. water main-
This side of Pond Street.
Yeah,
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 right.
so. There's two mains there and we're exploring that option of abandoning the 8 and moving to the 14, right? And were you gonna test some pressures by shutting things down or something?
We already did that,
And
still,
still
no,
going.
I'll go over it today.
Yeah, we haven't noticed any change.
I would,
If the tanks, the water towers took longer to fill. That was one of Brian's main questions, I think.
so there's a section of pipe shut down right now?
It's dead end,
On one end.
still feeding the house.
So
It's just dead end right at 3A.
no water quality issues there?
Nobody's called, not one call,
No,
which I was surprised.
Where's the dead end?
3.
dead end of 3A, right at the lights.
Let's see that.
So that's what we maybe will eliminate.
So it basically goes from here to 3A.
Yeah.
And how many services do you think around
11, 2 hydrants.
it? Okay. So if we were to abandon that, we would have to get a price from IREA to put in 11 new services and connect the 2 hydrants.
2 hydrants, and then they'd also have to connect to the 14-inch.
Right. Does that 14-inch serve any other houses?
Hugh Strain, right?
Huge strain.
Yeah.
And 1 hydrant.
How do we know if there's any pressure problem with that if we connect to 11 services and 2 hydrants? Is that?
That's when that's what we do with flow tests and engineering, but what we're doing now is same thing.
Yeah.
I was doing flow tests.
Brendan, do you have any pressure measuring devices? You know, remember the old charts you used to be able to hook up on hydrants and watch it?
Yeah,
Could try doing something like that, and monitor things over a couple of days, could track something down.
yeah, see if it
That would provide some data about the activity or drop in pressure over periods of time, certain times of the day. We could talk about it, see if we can't find anything, if you don't have anything on site. Sometimes they have digital ones you can hook up to a hydrant cap and then download.
Yeah, we did that years ago.
Yeah.
We did the whole system. Then you send them
right.
out.
Just a thought.
Cedar Street, anything?
Yeah, so as you know, it's done, but we just wanted to cover it for the record. Cedar Street was looped through DPW property to the new extension on the back of the golf course. We, at Cedar Ledge Village, the neighborhood up the street, we replaced one valve and added another, so it's now a 3-valve intersection, right? And we added a valve to both DPW driveway and the driveway to the dump so that in the future, if they build a new building at the dump, they can connect a 6-inch, 8-inch.
Yep.
And the trench on DPW property is not paved yet. They're waiting just a couple more days for it to settle a little more. It's partially paved. And there's a gate valve on another gate valve at the golf club side.
Yeah, him too on this side.
Yeah, so it's a successful project that will help public safety and water quality.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the RTF will need approximately 150,000 to get water up to that building. So it's remains a challenge with them, the new building, if and when to build it. So that discussion might go up later. No other big projects right now? Nothing?
Short Street, that's it.
Short Street,
Yeah.
okay. How long do we think that's gonna take?
Be a month.
Really?
You get the bypass, so it's quicker.
Sort of changing subjects a little bit. Yesterday, Brendan and I met with a developer on South Main Street who's pretty down the road on adding an apartment to the back of, it's gonna be called 27 South Main, but it's like the hiking store outside in
Go package.
the old package store.
Yeah.
So the water is on Main Street. He was hoping that there would be a way for him to connect on the backside in the parking lot, but there's no water there. And we were hoping Brian would be here this morning because one of his main questions was who would be paying for, would there be a fire line connection fee? Because he's gonna need a fire line and currently there isn't one.
Okay. Who's that? The developer?
Paul Ford, right?
Okay. So I just,
He was like, okay, so you're gonna have an answer tomorrow? I said, no, sir, I'm gonna ask the question tomorrow. It could be a while before you have an answer.
We told them about the project, South Bend. Project is coming.
Yeah.
Fall.
not involved. Probably not.
What? South Main water main replacement, not in the fall.
Likely.
Yeah, about the old one.
Yeah, I mean, that's a separate discussion with Brian, but, we need to reevaluate. That's the best thing to do, right?
Okay.
I mean, not to bounce around, but what's the history of issues with that main? Other than the massive, leak we had.
Other than that, we haven't had any leaks.
Yeah.
That was a doozy.
Some of the services are kind of spaghetti bed from building to building.
Which buildings?
I
All of
think it's 19, no, so yeah, there's a lot. So some have one service and then will feed 3 meters in the building.
Okay.
Or parking bay,
A couple,
feed the doctor's office out there.
there's a couple stubs ready for someone to connect new fire lines. Couple of those, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but something we have to think about though is when they're doing 3A, we're gonna have more traffic coming down Main Street. I don't know,
That's
there's gonna be heavier trucks.
It's a really
I know
good
it's
point.
supposed to be 3 years before they do that, but we should be, doing this way in advance.
Yeah.
Because you never know if you have some really heavy truck come down and there goes.
Yeah.
A connection.
Yeah, needs to be brought to the front burner because, we have been kicking the can down the road on quite a bit. If we're not gonna do it, we need to pivot to the other locations or just bite the bullet. No one is in favor of, disrupting the center of town for a extended period of time. That's where the kickback is, and we don't really have issues with the pipe, so. It needs to be reevaluated, and it's gonna be much more expensive than originally thought, so it's all a part of
Oh, yeah,
the calculus here.
but I'm just saying, if we have a major issue, if we can do anything in a major issue down when they're doing 3A and center of town is messed up too, that's gonna be.
Are large trucks allowed to go through center of town now?
They have been for, yes,
Yeah.
any type of construction project.
Okay, so, we're ready to move on to what are the current update?
All right, Brendan, you can go then.
Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan.
I gotta check off a bunch of things we talked about. Okay. Chlorine gas system upgrade, hardware upgrade. It's still chlorine gas. It's not liquid chlorine. And we don't expect it ever will be. And that's fine because now what we have is much safer, easier for us to maintain, much more reliable. And it came out great. It's going to trigger a lot of SCADA work, but most of it can be piecemealed in over time. Not a lot of it is critically imminent. So very, very happy about that. Huge relief. That was about 58,000. I've received a sampling kit for algae for Lily Pond. Those are about 2,500 around, and I've been kind of advised to try to do it twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall. So planning on doing that pretty soon in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Hey, Jonathan, real quick, the justification for 2 times a year is to create a good profile
Yeah,
in order to potentially offer options for treatment, just so the board knows.
yeah, and to kind of capture, I guess in the spring, it would be the beginning of the cycle and of the growth cycle, and fall would be the end, is
Right.
how I
Maybe-
understand it.
Yeah, end of summer, beginning of fall, maybe.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, remember we did a drone survey?
Yes.
Did you find that helpful at all? Do you think maybe we could use high school students with their drones to give them some practice, getting them involved in environmental
I mean, are
projects?
there high school drones?
Oh, I'm sure there are. Aren't there kids with drones? I'm sure.
I have no idea.
Because I know that, they do a lot of stuff. Danny Leahy would be the person to talk to because he's involved with them all the time.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that would give us, Lee. I mean, I'd be happy to do an exercise with the high school. More than happy to do that, but I don't think it's going to provide us any data as far as water quality and how to treat. It might be able to pick up areas of trespass, maybe some silting, or other types of activity, but I guess we'd have to define what we were looking for. But it's not a bad
Well-
idea. It would be great to engage the high school kids, though.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking, just for our records to see, maybe we could pick up something else as you were suggesting, Fred.
Well, the last time we did it, it was a good baseline because we got a pretty nice product out of it and it was somewhat affordable.
Yeah, and this way, we could get the kids involved. It wouldn't cost us anything.
So
And I'm sure
on that
they'd
note, excuse me, if you do have an immediate need, like you have to react or view something that's only accessible by drone, apparently emergency management is getting like a big commercial grade
Oh, wow.
drone.
That's pretty cool.
That will be piloted by this kid, Danny Kinship, I guess, but this young guy, Danny Kinship.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be available,
Great.
should you need that, so town asset.
I hope so. Maybe we could use him
Yeah,
instead.
maybe we'll just invite them down just to get acquainted.
Yeah, there's already some talk about them trying to look at the fence line around the reservoir. See what condition that's in.
It's not great.
And then, it might also be available too, because, we're talking about the debris that is being left behind by people using the pond. We could also find out where other debris is besides right over here.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
So a lot of the region is kind of in drought. We are not for the rest of March. If we get no more rain for the rest of March, we're gonna need 3.5 inches of rain in April to stay out of drought. But with that said, we also want to do spring hydrant flushing. So we're looking to start that as soon as possible to kind of get ahead of the drought. And, we find that if we don't flush twice a year, it does lead to problems and some complaints of water quality. Only issue there is we don't currently have a solid reverse 911 access. We kind of are relying on the vendor to help us.
No.
No?
No, Tim Sheriff, or whatever his name is there, from the police station.
Richie.
Oh, okay, so
Richie.
police is helping us.
He did the last couple.
Yeah.
Because this system doesn't do what I wanted to do. So I can pick street by street, it just doesn't do it. So my thought and Jonathan's thought was we would do a townwide rave call. And telling everybody that they can check the website or call the water department. And we'll just update it with Kevin. Weekly,
Okay.
instead of me doing the nightly calls.
And then also quickly, regarding the drought, even though, you know, that drought situation is what it is, both reservoirs are like overflowing right now.
Yeah.
So like now's the time really to do it.
Okay, but about the drought situation, aren't we kind of stuck with the state regulations, even though we are having abundant water? Because I remember previous years when we had sufficient water, there was drought, but the regulations say if you don't have X amount of rainfall, previous years, you have to do X, Y, and Z.
Well,
Isn't that in our permit?
Well, we do have our own plan. And there's three conditions that dictate our drought status. It's stream flow, reservoir levels, and
Rainfall.
rain in 3-month rainfall totals. Yeah, so even though like other towns, you know, I think other towns have more stringent
Well, yes, because they don't have-
statewide things, yeah.
No, it seemed as though we were always going along with everything that the town said for this region, or the state said for this region.
Well,
Yep.
those are the conditions. So
Okay.
like it can,
Very,
yeah,
Hey, real quick, Jonathan, backing up to that, questions about those water mains and switching over the services and hydrant pressure measurements. I've reached out to several contacts, and if I can get those on hydrants prior to flushing out from the plant, that'd be a good time to do it. If I just want to verify that that'll be helpful information, if that makes sense.
as to tie it in with our routine flushing.
Yeah, and especially
Yeah.
if we're flushing from the plant out, that would be a good idea. Like somewhat almost create a fire flow condition, if you will.
Yeah.
See if there's any restrictions or any issues in pressure drops. But I'll do my best if I can get a vendor. I reached out to Rob Little, some people internally as well. If we can find a few of those hydrant pressure measurement equipment, we could roll them out quickly. Maybe the data would be useful. I'm not sure, but I'll do what I can to turn that around.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay.
All right, moving on. We've had Industrial Burner do a lot of HVAC repair since our last meeting, or at least a couple visits anyways. But right now, everything seems to be running good. And we're expecting the new boiler, the bigger unit, to be replaced here in the next couple of weeks. This was something like a $20,000 purchase, if I recall, 20 to 30,000. And so this building hot water system or heating system, it's forced hot water that's feeding this radiator right now. And there's 2 of those units. Recently, we did routine annual maintenance and they found a pretty big leak in one of them. And so that's what triggered this. And so that's getting replaced pretty soon.
Where
Excuse
is
me,
that?
sorry.
You said we have 2 boilers?
Yeah, they're on the 2nd floor. No, they're not that big. They're like the size of these chairs.
So we've already given them, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, we haven't been invoiced, but we've,
The purchase orders are created, everything's in place.
So we're gonna do the other one pretty soon, do you think?
no, well,
What?
question is when and if we're gonna do the other one.
Make sure we'd be expecting the other one to go soon too.
I'd say in the next few years, yeah,
Okay.
probably, to be safe, should be done.
So about $25,000.
Yeah.
Maybe more in a few years. So
Well, I just took this current one, I think, and I took it out of the extraordinary maintenance, because. That's just.
Yeah.
But it just came out of our regular.
Okay,
So.
that's good.
so it's
How many years do you think we get out of something like that?
I think what's in there now is like 30 years old.
Wow, okay.
I don't think nowadays you're gonna get that much.
No, probably not, probably not.
Depending on where it's sourced.
I do have some comments on Whitney Crossing, but maybe we should save that for last. It's kind of an open-ended discussion.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, a few more quick ones. As part of some safety security surveys that Woodard Kern has done, we're going to be replacing the front lobby window, which is the plastic plexiglass right now. We're going to replace it with something a little more secure. Right now, like someone could jump through it if they really wanted to. That's $1,200 conservatively. It's less really. And also as part of that effort, we're going to be replacing the front lobby, the front entrance. There's 3 doors. We're going to replace the hinges on the outermost one and the innermost one so that they're like a security style. Right now, on the outermost door, the hinges are like on the outside of the building. So someone could like walk up and like remove the pin and take the door out. So we're going to like put like internal hinges on them.
Is that a report that generated? Is there an audit or a visit? By your team?
I think you could say that. Yeah, it was kind of focused on workplace violence and like domestic terrorism, kind of disgruntled customers, that type of violence.
Yeah. So you Woodard had someone that specializes in that come in?
I filled out a survey and then we pow out after.
So is there written recommendations?
Yes, I think that's accurate to say, yeah.
So based on your survey for questionnaire,
Yes.
written recommendation generated for Woodard?
If I'm wrong, they can be.
Okay, I just like to review those.
Yeah.
I also think we have a massive gap in surveillance here as well, so that's a topic for another day, but.
Okay, and then we did all the exterior doors, right? About the hinges. Where they are. Have you looked at that?
I would have to double check that.
Okay, because I'm thinking about this one right here.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of conversations about these glass doors.
Oh, yeah, the glass doors.
Yeah.
Even,
That gate remains open during the day, back there.
Yeah, both do.
yeah, because I know there's been a lot of problem before with people just walking. The accessibility of this plan for people walking around.
I will say, there used to be. We really
Yeah.
don't see hardly anybody
People come in
anymore.
now and ask, and I
Yeah.
say no.
Like
Okay,
once in a while, we'll get a fisherman. We got a lot of ice fishermen recently with the pond freezing. But there's no dog walkers coming in here and things like that.
it stopped that
Yeah,
totally good.
Yeah.
I remember the problems we had with those,
Yeah.
especially down by the intake.
there's a lot of dog poop at the big reservoir. We put up signs,
Well,
so that's
people don't
unfortunate.
read signs.
Yeah,
Maybe we should just have one. Don't forget, this is your drinking water supply.
yeah, we kind
What
of,
goes in?
do. Maybe it should be bigger. but,
Well,
um,
yeah, no, instead of, because I know our signs has a lot of information on it, but.
Yeah.
If it's, maybe we should think about something that's more eye-catching.
On the topic of Aaron River, we had our state required phase 1 dam inspection recently, required every 2 years. And there may be an opportunity to get some financial assistance paying for that. It's only a couple thousand, but I got this automated email about the possibility of, different dam programs. So I'm working on that. We are expecting to get our annual preventative maintenance on both generators here in Whitney Crossing. However, the reason I bring that up is because there's been a coolant leak at the Whitney Crossing one that we've had repaired multiple times and it keeps leaking. So we're a little frustrated about that, but we're on them. And then kind of the last easy one I have here is I was able to get the chain and flight sludge scrapers inspected that had $1 million replacement estimate from Tetra Tech a few years ago. And when I told the guy about that estimate, he kind of like almost fell over. He was like, that's crazy. There's no way it's $1 million. And he inspected it and he identified a few parts that could or should be replaced in the next few years, but it's nowhere near $1 million.
Mhm.
And so I'm working on identifying those parts and the manufacturers. Him and I, after found the blueprints. So now that I have the drawings, I need to find the big documents from when they were originally installed to get him, the make and model and all that. So I'm working on that.
So they need to be replaced in the next couple of years, you said,
There's a few parts.
parts?
Yeah. And
How will we know when they're replaced? Preventive or
it's preventive. Yeah.
so sometime in the next couple of years?
Yes. For significantly less than $1 million.
But we're still talking like 6 figures.
I can't answer that. Probably not, I would say. Okay, I have 2 more topics and they're kind of long. So I have a written update on the sludge design status. Right. Phase 1, or here's the completed work. Phase 1, wetland survey completed. Land survey completed and existing conditions plan has been received. Geotechnical exploration completed. We're expecting a final geo report by, I have a note saying the end of this week. I think I received that email. I don't know, it should be, I guess, this week or next week. And phase 2, to be completed, Woodard and Curran is preparing the conceptual plan and basis of design report. And they expect to have that final draft for review by March 28th.
Nice.
And the average bedrock depth that they found was between 3 and 7 feet. 7 feet's good, 3, not so much. I think that's my reaction to that. What?
I would do the opposite. Bedrock depth, 7 feet is better than 3.
Yeah, I think you want to be able to dig down and not have to remove bedrock.
That is correct.
So. Oh.
Oh,
when you
it
hit
hits bedrock.
It's 7
Yes.
feet.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Oh, okay.
Or
We're looking at it upside down.
It's an average,
We were-
sorry,
yeah.
no, yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's an average of 3 to 7 feet down.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
We're thinking that you're taking out 3 to 7
No,
feet.
no.
Well, do they think about building up? Is that possible?
I can't say,
What
probably
was the
not.
question? What was the question?
I mean, can you just build, can you like build up? You know,
Potentially, but they have to look at the hydraulics and, the pumping behind that, getting the water out.
Yeah.
Right.
Pumping up in the winter might be hard.
So shifting a little bit, but still on the topic of the lagoons. I think I've mentioned to you that both lagoons are now wet storage. There's no bag in either of them. I do have a small bag ready to be deployed outside of the lagoon as they fill and, as things get tight. We currently have 90,000 left in that budget item, plus, maybe a couple tens of thousands from other items we can pull from. And so I placed a call yesterday to the dewaters to let them know that if they could return and start sometime in June and get us some invoicing before July 1st, because some funds are going to disappear on July 1st. And they seemed like it could go either way. They may or may not be able to meet that deadline. Or first I said, if you could start and get it done by July, and they said, no, probably not. I said, well, could you start and get us any invoices by July? And she said, okay, possibly, yeah.
For what?
So
Sludge dewatering.
sludge dewatering,
Center?
yeah, no, it's Sanisac.
Sounds like that.
Trying to bring down the budget as much as we can.
Okay. So when do we start using bags?
Well, officially, kind of in the last few weeks,
Really?
when so we,
And that's because of the new process, removal, dewater?
we removed what was left over of the bag sludge in February when we were in a deep freeze. And it was kind of too difficult and hazardous for us to deploy a bag the way we normally would. And also we've had success with the dewatering. So we, for those reasons, and while that was happening, the original long-term wet storage lagoon was full and at risk of overflowing.
Yeah.
So those are all the factors that drove that.
Okay.
Right. Morning.
Sorry. Yeah. That's a positive thing.
Yes, assuming we dewater twice this year, which isn't a certainty, but if we were to, I think the total sludge removal cost for the year would be, 20 to 40,000 more than we're used to.
Yeah.
But the ease of it and, how clean it is and it's just much more faster and efficient. It's,
Brian, we kind of jump around the agenda right now. We're just
Yeah.
going over some watering current updates.
So the-
Just tell us about sludge removal.
Yeah, so the basis of the design, are we at like a 30, 60 or anywhere like concept design?
we expect the basis of design by end of March, March
Okay.
28th.
So that'll be in draft form. We'll review it. Provide any feedback or changes, and then once we finalize it, that's what we can use for an RFP, correct? That's where we're working towards.
That's my understanding.
And yeah, and just having gone to Capitol last night, what was the idea on funding the whole construction next, that special or?
I mean, we didn't even get that far, because we don't know what it's gonna cost. I mean, there's been some estimates that it's gonna be anywhere between like 4 and 6 million.
Yeah.
To build 3 new lagoons. So, I don't know, we gotta talk about the bid process, because is there a requirement that we have to have this funding secured for the bid?
Yeah, I've heard that before, but we're going out to bid right now for town hall. Like fire and sprinkler, and the bids are gonna be, I mean, the funding is potentially coming in on May town meeting, so you wouldn't award the bid until the vote of yes. And if you time it that way, let's say we're not ready for this May, but let's say specials in October. If we do the bidding, which is probably a 3-month process, we have prices in hand, ready for town meeting following week, then you have a hard number and say like, it's gonna be whatever it is.
Yeah.
And go for that vote. So if we're ready to do that, I would say line up an article for special town meeting in the fall. That just has a blank placeholder for, you can even put a rough figure, say TBD. And if you go to bid,
For the design or for construction? Because the design is gonna be several $100,000, most likely. So
okay,
so
so we're
likely have to
talking,
pay for that out of retainer, and then when we get goes out to bid, we select a bidder. They go through their design process, however long that may take.
okay, so we're talking about RFQ for design process.
Yeah.
Construction.
So yeah, so this basis of design is just so we can get like an RFP out on the street. The contractors can actually bid on.
Right, so say it's 6 million,
Design.
we're talking about 10% is what, 600. So do you have that funding in, we have 1.1 in retained earnings?
No, a little less. Less than 700, 800.
Because we just borrowed off of it. Well, we took on.
So.
Yeah, so the RFQ is, I guess,
This is just to get an RFP on the street for design.
yeah. So that's a little different though. I was thinking construction the whole time. I mean, you could put that out anytime and then you receive, books of qualifications and you can do the process and take. as long as you want. And then-
So. Logistically, we put an RFP out on the street for design, we award. A design firm, they take however long it takes to design 3 new lagoons. Then we have a design in hand, we put that on the street for a contractor to bid.
Yeah.
For construction.
So if the timing works out, you can go for the design, you put the RFQ. For design out in the summer. Get those few $100,000 hopefully, at the special town meeting. They through to the design next winter and then go to the next town meeting. Annual town meeting for construction.
May of 26.
It seems to be the fastest. Funding track. Right?
Yeah.
So then you would have. A few more cycles of like. Yeah, part of the design is going to be how do you stay in operation and. Construct, so maybe new ones next to it. Figure that out. It seems high to me. I mean, they're like swimming pools, basically. So they're big, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going off what are put in their, master plan study.
you could be right. It's just seem like, there's no vertical construction. It's all horizontal concrete. Doesn't seem super complicated to me, right? It's like a big,
That would
But
be
it
nice.
also has to do with ledge removal. We have to do it.
right, that's gonna be a big ticket. And there is definitely much.
It
And
just
I
said
know that was the
3 to
big
7
problem.
feet to bedrock. They did the,
So I'm looking at 0 right behind you right there.
Yeah. I mean, I remember from 2 different issues coming up in the last 25 years, it was always put off.
Because of ledge.
Well, ledge and conservation.
Yeah, so the RFQ should, I mean, if you want to get it all in there, I would make sure they have design, permitting and bid. Bid services.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, if you want to do construction services too.
so the thing that I've been thinking about is. As it relates to what we do to the plant long term. Do we do the 3 new lagoons? Live with that for a little while to see how that impacts this current plan. And then determine, design, and move forward with what we do with the plan. Or do we just move forward regardless of what we think we need to do with the plan? Because, does the 3 new lagoons drastically change the performance of what's here enough that would impact what we do, the scale of what we have to do? Does that make sense?
I think those are good questions.
Yeah, that does make sense. So let me ask you a question, Jonathan. If you had an unlimited lagoon out there, would you be dosing more coagulant to get more stuff out of the water? Or would we just like right there?
I don't think I would be, but I would be dumping more sludge, which would make the quality of the water more consistent and a little better.
Okay, yeah, so it will have an impact, treatment 100%.
Yeah.
And then you see where we go.
What we have right now is kind of a boom and bust cycle where as the lagoons fill up, we have to make compromises in the plant. And as we do that, the water quality goes down. And then we remove sludge and then we can, be more liberal with wasting
Put on
sludge.
the gas.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
everything.
Yeah.
So it's a choke point then.
Okay, but something else we have to think about too is PFAS.
That's
Because, if what we have to do in the plant. And Fred, I noticed that in the upcoming Worcester meeting, there are very interesting PFAS sessions. Especially the one at Wednesday at 9:30 with the PFAS treatment optimization, the fluorosorb systems. And then Thursday at 3:30 with your Rebecca Fostian, the URI interim solution. So maybe we can, after those meetings, you can report back to us if you're going to any of those sessions.
What are the dates of those meetings?
Fred, when's the date of the,
I believe it's the week of April 7th. I won't be attending, but Jonathan, I would encourage you to go. and
okay,
try to
because
hit the-
that was the thing that we were invited to. In
Yeah,
Worcester.
that was Woodard and Curran that night.
Yeah.
They're doing a client
But that's when
appreciation.
that's
you
when the
could-
meeting is.
Yeah, you could certainly attend those technical sessions if you wish to spend the whole day there. That would be great. Love
Well,
to
no,
have-
I don't think I'm going to be around.
You get TCHs for your license too.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Because I know we got the invitation ourselves.
there's also another technology, it's called nano bubble technology that we implemented on a wastewater plants, and they're finding that may have the potential to strip PFAS. And I brought up your well source as potentially a free pilot. I hadn't really thought about the plant, but it was something, and it's very reasonable if you do roll it out, if it would make sense and it works. We can also look at that technology as well. We're having a lot of success on the wastewater side. Now they're saying that they believe it could work on water applications as well. So stay tuned. I've already talked to the rep last week. I brought up Cohasset Water. So kind of moving that forward as best we can to see if it makes sense.
Yeah, because I noticed they're doing a lot with the sewer outfall with the PFAS.
Right.
So some of that, and and then the two main systems are the GAC and the ionization.
Right.
So, but if we could have something that would be better for our well field, that would be smaller and cheaper, and get that up and running again.
I just don't know what they would do with the residual waste of, the byproduct. So
Yeah,
stay tuned. I got to look at it, and then we'll have them come out to the plant at some point, do a site visit maybe.
Yeah, we are having conversations about
mhm,
trying a pilot.
yeah. So that would be good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, last thing I'm gonna bring up, and we don't need to discuss it at length, but I've mentioned it a bunch of times in emails, and I just want to say it again in person. In the last couple months, I realized that even though we may have been benefiting financially from the Whitney Crossing Linden Ponds agreement, maybe disproportionately benefiting financially, that does come with the fact that we are responsible for paying for repairs at the station. And at the moment, at least 2 of the pumps need to be rebuilt, and I have a quote for that, and they're $8,000 each. And I just think that's something everyone should be aware of with the new contract being drafted. And that really whoever is benefiting financially ought to be contributing to the maintenance of the station.
Yeah, well, because the old contract was basically from us to Linden Ponds.
Yes,
And now that we're getting rid of Linden Ponds and we are dealing directly with Hingham Water,
yes.
it should be a mutual. I agree with you 100%.
What have we done historically? We pay for all repairs and maintenance.
No, it has been because, as I said, it's been for Linden Ponds. It wasn't for the Hingham Water. But if we're doing it for Hingham Water, it's totally different situation in my mind.
It was pretty much a brand new facility, so life cycle wise, it's probably coming up to those years of like replacements and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
And we paid for the chlorine addition.
Yeah,
At their request, all right.
Yeah.
So I'll have to relook at the draft we sent them. I don't recall what it says about maintenance and repairs. Who's responsible?
I believe it says we are.
Okay.
We own that facility, correct? Even though it was,
Yes.
so honestly, I would probably say that's gonna be more of our responsibility in the long run.
And with that, that's my last topic.
Okay, so I did talk to Russ the other day. From Hingham, he said that he has given his town council until the end of this month to get him feedback on the agreement. I mean, this is going well over a year, so I did remind him that we have until November for that existing agreement expires. So likely we'll have to put some pressure on everybody next few months to get this done. But I think the agreement's gonna have to be revised and certain ways anyway. For one, they're asking for 150,000 gallons, right?
Yeah,
The
or-
agreement says
or-
100,
up to.
up to, yeah. So, I'm inclined to put that in there. But somehow put the language in that, they have the right to up to 150,000 gallons a day pending our ability to provide it. or something like that.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't
Okay,
know
and
if
also
it's
something
currently-
should be put in there, depending on what drought situations are in the area.
Okay.
Because that would have an impact on, possibly.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look at that. Okay, anything else, Sean?
That's it for me.
Yeah, one other question. The weeds out here, they're okay. We're satisfied with the benthic barriers. We don't need any extraction at this point. Like, we used to be extracting them
Yeah,
every so often. We'd bring in the diving company and use the geo bags and extract.
so what they did the last couple rounds, they explained to me, should last for 10 years. Now I think that's more to do with the silt than the weeds.
Yeah,
But as far as the benthic barrier, actually, I looked into it a little recently and I was reminded that the benthic barrier is in. We normally would take it out in the fall and put it in the spring, but this past fall, we decided to
Keep it.
just leave it.
Mhm.
So it's still in there, and I think that my thought was that this fall we would take it out and just to see how it did and how that decision impacted or didn't impact anything, and if it was worth saving a couple thousand to do that.
Yeah.
So it's in right now, still.
all right, so as long as we don't have any, but the concern is with the benthic barrier down, we would get the silt on top of it
Right.
and then more.
Right, so I think that's why we wouldn't just leave it in there forever. But we were
Yeah.
gonna try to see what would happen after leaving it in for 1 year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know, I've been trying that up on my lake in Maine,
Oh,
just in front of my property. I noticed the weeds still come.
there's not a lot of weeds
Good.
directly around the intake. Over more towards the front of the building, more towards the lagoon, that's probably another story, but right in front of the, I think it's also deeper around the intake.
Mhm. Well, that's another thing that we could do with drones is see if they could concentrate on where the highest concentration of weeds are.
Yeah.
That might be an interesting to see how it's encroaching.
All right,
Hey, Chris, real quick, I have to jump off for another
Okay.
meeting. Is there anything you need from me? You want to discuss? You want to take out of order? I'd be happy to hang in another 5 minutes. Or are we good? I know the
thank
rate
you. I
stuff,
think-
the rate team is getting after it. Brenda's provided them with the information they need.
Yeah,
So-
and just on that note, Fred, so I had sent an email and I said that you guys should consider a 10-year capital investment between 35 and 65 million. The more I thought about it, it seems very unlikely that we'll be able to pay for debt of 50+ million.
Right.
So we likely need to look at something much less, like 25 to 30. And it will likely have to happen around year 2031, 32.
Okay.
In 2031, 32, that's when all of our current debt rolls off.
Okay.
So we could potentially take on much more debt over a 40-year time period
Right.
that may be within our budget and current rates or
Right.
then rates.
Okay.
So that's a little bit more of a refinement of the thought process than what I originally emailed you a month or so ago.
Yeah, I'll inform them of your thoughts, and maybe they have some other creative way, for funding and so forth, but I'll leave it up to them, but I'll certainly pass that along.
Okay, and so just to refresh everyone's memory, we need that rate study sometime in like August, September, so it can be evaluated and then formulated into a town meeting proposal in November. Our current rates end fiscal year 26.
Not this year.
So we're going
Next
into
year.
fiscal year 26 in
Yeah,
July.
it ends,
Yeah,
yeah,
so-
so
yeah.
it will be presented at the,
26.
June 30th of next year, though.
Yeah.
Have new rates.
Right.
so it'll be voted on at town meeting a year from this one.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, that.
Yeah.
We talked last time about trying to get it this calendar year, this rate study.
Mhm.
And potentially bring it before the November town meeting. I
Well,
think that's too, I think
maybe.
that's too soon as well.
What,
I-
November?
I think that's a little too soon as well.
Yeah, well, no, because typically you get it, you do the rate study, or you bring the new proposal at the town meeting right before it's going to be.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine with me. I think May would give us much more time to.
Yeah.
Flush everything out.
No, but I mean, we have to have it done in the November, December, so we could start talking financials.
Right,
Because
right.
all the other boards in town need it. That's the only reason.
That's right. Okay, 'cause we'll be doing our,
People will be working on their budgets come January.
Yeah,
fiscal
So,
27
yeah.
budgets in January. Okay. All right, thanks, Fred.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let me know if you need anything. Thanks.
okay.
All right, so it looks like Chris dropped off, so.
Yeah, Chris had to go to a negotiation.
Okay.
He emailed me,
All right, not sure why he was joining, if he was gonna speak to any of the
and I
financials.
think he was probably gonna speak to financials, but
We don't have the indirect costs, which we were supposed to get yesterday, but you put in a plug number on the budget. I believe.
yes, and one of the emails, and I think you might have been one that's from him, said, stick to the formula or stick to something, and I thought,
We don't
that
have,
hasn't been updated.
no,
From Chris?
Yeah,
yeah, we haven't gotten, we used to get a spreadsheet, the whole Excel spreadsheet to see exactly what the indirect costs are. And
well, as of last week, Michelle was working with Dawn to get that information.
yeah, well, just make sure when they get it, they put the correct year on it. Because it's very difficult. I know the one that Jennifer gave us was like 3 years. They had the wrong year on it, so you never knew exactly what it was. If someone went to look it up, they would presume it was for 3 years prior, not the year that it was supposed to be.
Well, we plugged in a dollar amount into the budget anyways. I think it was $2,000 or $3,000 more than this year. Just because
Just
I had to put something in there,
2 to 3% escalation. or
you
something.
know,
Well,
so.
see, but we should be getting this information so we could discuss it. We're supposed to have reconciliation. And Don said no, but according to even state regulations, we're supposed to be having reconciliation with indirect costs. And Chris Senior does not seem to want to deal with it. And in my opinion, we have not reconciled the indirect cost for FY 23, according to what they should have been.
So on the budget topic, I'm not prepared to discuss at length or vote on that. Number one, we don't have that final indirect cost proposal, but also this needs to be reviewed with Don, and I'm trying to set something up with him because the debt authorized and unissued is a very big number, and that was clarified last year. That's why we have 578,000 in our budget. So we're missing that big number, and that's the number that the rates are ordering us to pay in debt service that was never issued. So that's the amount or something around that will roll to retained earnings. So we can't increase all of our line items to make it a net zero budget and not account.
And not have that number.
Yeah,
Because a portion of our revenue is supposed to be going to the debt authorized and unissued.
That was the filtration system and
GAC.
GAC.
Water main stuff,
Basically,
yeah.
Yeah,
okay, and then I also, when looking at the budget and looking at the interest income, it is amazing to me how how low the interest has been from 21 until you get to 23. Well, even before that, from 18. Knowing, being a business owner and having money in the bank, knowing what my interest was, then all of a sudden seeing we're going from 3 to 5 to 9,000, and all of a sudden to 52,000. What were they doing with our money? Because they are supposed to be, according to state regulations, having it in efficient interest-bearing accounts. This is stabilization and retained earnings. And we've been carrying about 1.8 million in retained earnings for years. So what happened to the rest of that money? How did we not get interest on it?
Prior to 23.
Yeah, I mean, take a look. We went from 3,500 to 52,000. I mean, the interest rates weren't in the basement those
They
prior
didn't
years.
shoot up till 5 until after that. I'm just guessing at,
Well, no, I'm looking at my old bank statements to see what the interest rates were.
yeah.
Just even in Citizens on my money market accounts for my corporation.
Yeah.
And, our paid professionals are supposed to be looking out for our interest and, not just saying, okay, here, we'll activate loans and get you interest to pay. They're supposed to be getting interest for us.
Yeah, I can bring that up. That might be Linda.
Yeah,
Yeah, well-
and I think Linda did explain it as, she has watched it a lot more carefully to put the monies in something that's gonna be
Yeah.
higher earned, whereas the previous, treasurer collector did not do that. That's the reason.
But I mean, we went for like
I
8
think
to 10 years.
I think it's an allocation based on the balance for each fund. So the
Mhm.
sewer department has a certain amount of cash, we have a certain amount of cash,
Mhm.
and then the town has a certain amount of cash. It's all in one account.
Yeah.
It's just on paper that it's separated. So I would
Oh.
venture to guess that it's a journal entry based on a percentage allocation of interest earned.
I don't know, do you think the town was getting very little interest on those years? We have to check that
Well,
out.
that's what I'm saying is.
Is it
We
possibly,
may not have
they
just been
made some
allocated.
mistakes
Yeah,
in their
it-
percentage of
it's likely that-
allocation?
I'm guessing, but it's perhaps that the interest was just not allocated in the same manner it should have been, so.
That's something I think we should look into because we're looking, I'd say, an average of $35,000 a year for a
Yeah.
number of years.
Okay, so, I think we need to, I need to do some work on the budget. Hopefully I can get some time with Don to clarify what should be put in for authorized and unissued. That will also give us a bit of a check and balance to make sure that what we have in retained earnings now increases by a similar amount of what that amount is. Because if, say we have 500,000 in authorized and unissued,
Mhm.
that amount or something similar should be rolling into retained earnings.
Yeah,
So, is anyone asking for a budget right now?
they should be. You should have been before capital budget by this point in time with it.
Well, I'm just seeing how much time we
I've been
have.
very transparent to both Michelle and Chris.
Okay, so I mean, I think
Until we
need,
have final numbers, we cannot give you a budget.
I think we need at
Yeah.
least 2 weeks to finalize this budget and then likely have a Zoom meeting vote. Sometime within the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I'm meeting with them on other budgets, so I'll mention it.
Yeah, but I mean, taking a look at our budget here, it looks like we probably should have increased Linton Ponds up a little bit from the 252 we put in there. Up to at least
What do you mean, the Linden Ponds?
Revenue,
the revenue, yeah. Well, because,
It's gonna be less water.
yeah, I think we're being conservative
We're
because,
being very conservative. I had Jonathan help me with the numbers on that.
because look at in,
And based on the current rate also. But it's gonna be less water we'll be selling,
less water. Yeah,
so it's gonna reduce.
okay. All right.
And we, as you know, always try to be conservative anyway.
Oh, I know. We have it very.
But I had asked Jonathan to do a fake invoice, monthly invoice based on the 150,000 and what it would look like based on the current rates. Times 12.
Anything on the expense budget, Brenda?
No, we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah,
And I am monthly, working with Diane to make sure her numbers balance with mine, and every month so far this fiscal year to the penny.
all right, and that contract, that indirect cost, will come down to the new journal entry amount.
So if you look, it was, oh, you don't have a packet there. The one I sent that said,
He passed out the packets.
all departments. All department expenditure report fiscal year 2025. And then there's a journal entry with it on the second page.
Okay.
So obviously the top is sewer, but the bottom section is water. And then on the front page, you can see the indirect costs, which we had put in is 138,000. It's been adjusted now. The total expended 64,879. And remaining balance is 73,131, which was the credit.
Yeah, see, well, that was it. The credit was still in dispute. I had contacted Chris Senior several times about it.
Well, this is the dollar amount that Chris Pratt and
Yeah,
I
it's not in
spoke
dispute. It's not in dispute.
to.
It was agreed to and we have it all.
I don't know. I never agreed to it. Because of the numbers.
So that's where the adjustment is done with the journal entry. And when,
But you told me to talk it over with Chris Senior and he never talked to me about it.
so this paperwork is being saved on Diane's end. So because it will be questioned by the auditors as to what happened.
Okay, so that 138 is gonna come down to 64.
And it has. So, and on that, again, on that page that says, all departments expenditure report fiscal year 2025. It's a 2-page stapled together. So you just gotta go down to where it says that indirect costs in the middle of the page. And you can see what was expended and what was.
Sure.
So it was reversed out in the second page.
Did we actually have 138 budgeted?
We put in 138.
Yes.
Because Dawn had suggested we put in a high dollar amount. So that we didn't have sticker shock
Okay,
this year.
right, true, yeah, okay.
So,
See, but Donna's the one who initiated the problem in the first place.
So that's another amount that should be rolling to retain
Correct.
earnings in theory.
correct.
Okay, are we ever gonna get the indirect cost being allocated through the year as it's supposed to be according to the state regulations? Instead of as Don initiated when he came in, taking it out on July 1st, which is against state regulations?
I can't speak to that.
No.
And as far as I know, this didn't come out July 1st. It was just
That's-
noticed, I just noticed it on the report last month that it was taken out.
I know there was another report that showed it came out July 1st,
No, I don't know about that.
but he started taking things out July 1st as soon as he came in.
Yeah, I don't have anything else on the financials. I have not had time to review what came in the other day.
Yeah, I apologize for not getting them out quicker, but they were working on these, updating the system with the woman that the town has hired to be the finance person.
So who these came from? So, Diane.
They were working in the back, she was working in the background to do the journal entries and doing all that. And then from that, I got a report on the capital projects from Diane. Linda gave me what's in capital stabilization, and I just ran these off of soft, right? After I confirmed with Michelle that they'd be okay and Diane.
Anything on the water capital accounts?
No, I have, honestly, that one I haven't gone through with a fine tooth comb yet. I want to make sure the ones that we liquidated at town meeting have been liquidated. And the money did go into retained earnings. But I just haven't had the.
Okay, there was one report that you sent out, Brenda, that showed the indirect cost of 138,000 had been expended, but it doesn't have a date on it.
When did I send that?
I found it in, I went through
Oh, well,
the packet.
oh, I don't know, Ethan.
Okay, no, it was in the ones you sent out, and I just.
Yesterday?
The water expenditure budget, yeah, because this is when I printed it yesterday.
Oh, that's my spreadsheet. Don't ignore that.
Oh, it's
just my
spreadsheet.
spreadsheet.
Okay, because it indicated on your spreadsheet that
Yes,
it was
because
taken out.
originally that was done.
Oh, okay, so
But
you,
if you were to look at my spreadsheet right now,
it was different, but this was
Different.
just you, this was initially until just recently.
when I got this yesterday,
Okay,
everything, that those
basically-
reports I got yesterday.
yes, so basically this was taken out July 1, and then it was just reversed. Because this was on your spreadsheet.
That's just,
Okay,
I automatically assume that's coming out no matter what. Lee.
okay, but it didn't.
So I just, and it doesn't calculate on the bottom line. That's just
All right,
my cheat sheet for you guys.
Oh,
So that you know.
that
on a
what's coming
daily
out.
Basis. Ignore
is-
it. Pretend that line's even.
Yeah, no,
gonna
I'm
take
just
it out.
saying, this is yours that shows where you expect us to be.
Yes, so I just assume that money's going out.
Yeah.
Just take it away. Don't add it into the line item. Ignore it. I'm
Okay,
just
no,
working
because-
with your regular, all the line items that we're borrowing, that we're taking and paying bills.
Right,
That's what I'm,
that's what you're doing, yeah, because we haven't been getting the reports from the town that.
but
we
year after
normally
year
would.
after year, that line, it's always zero on my report. From the beginning of the year.
From the
It's
beginning of the year,
always
okay.
Zero. Only because that's what I expect to come out every year, so why have it in there? My spreadsheet
Okay.
doesn't accumulate interest or
Thank you
do
for the
anything like that,
explanation.
so. It just,
Well, I mean, one thing that's alarming here is expanded residuals is a negative 107. This is what started all the ban issue. This was identified years ago that there was a negative balance in one of these capital accounts, so they borrowed for it. So it was borrowed. It was repaid. So why is there still a negative balance in one of these accounts?
Why, in GAC, why is that? Just trying to figure out,
Same deal. Page is that, yeah.
just right underneath it.
Same deal. That's, that was one of the two capital accounts that had a negative balance, so that's why.
so expand residuals. This one. That's the 5840. And what was the other one?
GAC filtration system. It's
Well, that's a negative, yeah. All right. I will have Diane look into that.
I mean, if these are supposed to show zero or come off this report, if they've been liquidated, it doesn't look like it has been liquidated. But,
Well, it does on the first page show some journal entries that were done. So I know with working with Woodard and Curran, when a journal entry is done, it doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna show up under that account code. But the bottom line would be correct, if that makes sense. Because it's something that's happening in the background. So on the front page, it's showing corrective revenue budget 535. And then there's a million. I don't know what any of these things mean. There's some reversals and
are all the costs in for Cedar Street?
no. The last paving. The last will be the paving. Everything else
Up
is
front,
in
I'm
there.
picking up that tab.
Huh?
What are we paving?
The Cedar Street Loop, everything's in for it,
Oh, yeah, Cedar.
but the only thing left is the last paving. Joey's waiting for it to settle a little
Trench
bit.
paving.
It's 44,000
Mushroom.
All right, this is an interesting report. Take a look at this a little bit closer. All right, I have a hard stop in 5 minutes. Is there anything, obviously by no
Just
means?
got to approve meeting notes.
Okay, approve the meeting notes of February 12th, 2025. Oh, I'm sorry, January 15th, 2025.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the meeting notes of February 12th, 2025.
second.
All in favor? Aye. The only thing I want to make a comment about is the upcoming Earth Day cleanup and drinking water week. One is starting the day after the Earth Day cleanup. And maybe we can take a look and get some information out.
When is Earth Day cleanup?
Oh, Earth Day
Isn't it
cleanup.
June?
No, it's May 3rd. And May 4th to 10th is National Drinking Water Week. And hopefully we can, I'll work on some information and pass it around that we can get on Facebook. Maybe get into the schools to make people aware of protecting our drinking.
Well,
water.
I would suggest reaching out to Kevin Perry.
Well, that's what I was going to do. After, but I have to get the information first.
And he's
Right.
really good about putting that kind of stuff together and getting it out there.
Yeah. So we'll do that. I'll send it out to you and Steve first before I do Kevin. But we have some time. We did it last year, but I don't think we got a lot of great coverage. Hopefully we'll get more this year. And with issues coming up in the environment, maybe we can get more students involved. And then you can.
Chris got- I'm sorry.
Besides our
Hey, good.
drone expert in town, it might be worthwhile to see if there are any students in the environmental program who want to do some drone research around to see about trash, about weeds, and about algae,
Yeah.
because that would fall right into their purview.
I can ask.
Thank you. You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the Board of Water Commission meeting at 9:28 AM on
18th.
2025. Second, is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Did we lose Steve?
Yeah, his computer shut down on him.
his computer shut down. Nice.
sure if he's there anyway. The chlorine gas
Yes.
upgrade is done.
Yeah, you go check it out.
Forget.
Jeff, I would- I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Huge better than the cap, so yeah.
The moment
absolutely.
break.
That's